Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome to the War Room. Now, as a bit of a bonus to this War Room, I'm simultaneously going to attempt to play a US Airborne deck in Asgard. So you're also going to have something to look at. It's a pure US airstrike deck, providing air support and making sure that nobody else is going to be dominating the skies. Now, the War Room. I already discussed it last week to some extent. What is going on with the War Room? Do I need to continue it? Do you think it's no longer interesting and should I switch to a different format or a different type? And one of the recommendations that I got was that I should also start to add in stuff like maybe history, interviews with other people, reviews of games, gameplay mechanics, stuff like that could be a useful addition or a useful contribution to the War Room. And that is something that I really find interesting. So this week's War Room is also going to have some military history, which is also going to be including some historic events and not pure military history, but anyone or anything that's also going to be more or less related to it. Now before we kick off, let's have a look at the map. We got November here, which is looking pretty desolate. Okay, I'm going to have to scrap my Air Force plans, at least to some extent, and quickly rush over some guys towards that flank, making sure that we don't lose out on that area right from the start. I'll send a CV that way. Helos, let's go with the DAP. And the Super Cobra. And to top it off, one Cobra. There we go. Now, as I was saying, it's going to be including some military history things as well, but that is more towards the end of the War Room. That's going to be after the elements of last week, this week, stuff like that. Anyway, with that, let's have a look at last week. And I gotta say, last week wasn't that different from this week. It's very quiet. There's not a lot going on for me. It is just a quiet time to be a trainer. And that's okay. I mean, December, people are working to closing off their year. They're working towards their last year goals or maybe their deadlines. Maybe they have some bonuses that they still want to get. And in order to get it, they still have to perform. They still have to get some new clients, sales goals like those. But that means that people are not interested remotely in training. It is just a big no-go for me for the moment. That's alright, it gives me a bit of time to look ahead, but at the same time it's giving me this question of, okay, am I just too relaxed? Am I not busy enough? Should I be busier than I am currently? And I don't really know the answer either. I don't really know what the right answer is. I mean, you have these people who are busy every day, all day. It seems like they know nothing else but being busy. It's something that they just always do. And to some extent, I find that these people are out of control, as someone once called it. It's like they don't have control over their own time. Which is a bit weird. I mean, you are, for all intents and purposes, going to be in control of your time, or at least, as far as I'm concerned, you should be. So, when you're not, I'm thinking, okay, what exactly is it that you are so incredibly busy with, that you should be doing or should not be doing? And I don't really have a clear answer for it either. It's just something that I cannot really fathom. I call these people usually ever-busies. They're always busy with something or another. And what exactly it is that they're busy with, I don't know. But somehow they promised to spend their time on a project that is just keeping them incredibly busy. Or several projects. Maybe they're volunteering for a local soccer community or sports club of any kind. I don't really care what exactly it is. It's just something that people spend a lot of time on. And that's okay. I mean, sure, but then don't come to me complaining that you're busy. Because you are the one who said yes in the first place. So then proclaiming that, oh my god, I'm so busy, I don't have time for anything. Maybe, but that's your own doing. That's of your own design. So if that's really going to be a problem for you, then it's it's something that you did. And it's something that you can change simply by saying no. Or simply by saying, sorry, I cannot do this anymore. So, at the same time, I'm always trying to be as efficient as possible with my time. Always trying to be looking towards, okay, how can I get the most result in the least amount of time? How can I get the maximum effectiveness out of this? And there's no real clear answer to that, or no right or wrong. It's just a way that I look at it. Thinking, okay, is this going to be effective? Is this marketing technique, for example, going to work out? Or is it something that is just not going to be that useful? If I'm, for example, this is something that I used to be doing this year. I used to be going towards, they're called open coffee meetings, which basically means that you're meeting a lot of other entrepreneurs and trying to get in contact with people who might be interested in your business. And that's something that, of course, is useful to do, but to some extent I found that it's just the same sort of people all over again. It's just the same type of people who are looking to make business themselves. It's the web designers, it's the developers, and I mean that's okay. But that just wasn't for me, so it was not an effective way of spending my time, and therefore I'd stopped doing it. It's just not going to get me any clients. Simple as that. So what that means is that when people say, oh God, I'm so busy, I always think, okay, well, it's something that you at some point said yes to. And okay, there are certain circumstances where you could say, well, that's not entirely true. That's not really the case, because my boss ordered me to do this. And then you can not always say no. Sometimes you're just going to have to do exactly what he ordered. In which case, yes, I'd agree. It's not going to be easy to say yes or no, because you're simply bound by contract. But if you're an entrepreneur, or a freelancer, or whatever you like to call yourself, then it shouldn't be that difficult to manage your own time. I mean, the way that I see a business is that you have clients. You need to acquire clients somehow. How exactly you do that is up to you. You need to try and get your books in order. You need to service the client at some point. And once that's done, you need to move on to the next client. That's pretty much the constant routine. Pretty much what goes on a daily basis. And if you're spending too much time, for example, on getting clients, then maybe that way isn't working for you. If you're spending too much time on trying to get your books in order, then maybe you should have someone do that for you, if you're not the most proficient at it. But this is something that, well, to some extent, just seems to be absolutely foreign to people. It seems to be that they just don't, I don't know, they don't get it, or they don't quite understand. I don't know. I really don't know what it is, but it is something that's been an interest of mine. Especially since, I'd say 2007, 2009 probably, when I started my own business. Where I was looking at a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, which is all about efficiency. And for example, it's the 80-20 rule that I mentioned before in the War Room, which is that 80% of your results will usually come from 20% of your efforts. For example, you have 5 different marketing channels that you're employing to get new clients. You're looking at, for example, a way like marketing along the lines of social media. You write blog posts, you send out a weekly newsletter, you go to these marketing events, and to top it off, you try to do outreaches to 5 different people a day. Usually, one of those 5 channels is going to get you the most effectiveness. It's going to give you the most rewards. So if you just focus your efforts on those and ignore everything else that's going on, then you have a pretty good solid basis where you probably don't even need the other 5 channels or the other 4 channels. That is the 80-20 method. If you translate it to Wargame, it looks like this. You have 5 different categories of units, but one category is probably going to get you the best effectiveness. It's going to give you the most results. And again, that's perfectly fine. But so long as you keep pouring points into the other elements, then you're probably not going to be the most effective. Damn it, that was an expensive CV there. There you go. Screw you. It's not going to give you the most effectiveness. So you may want to just lay off on spending time on those elements. That is the 80-20 rule. And it's something that I always try to consider. Where can I get the biggest bang for my buck if you're looking at plain American? How can I get the most effectiveness? Now, for example, with busy people, I'm always looking at them like, okay, you're so busy, but at some point you said yes. So what is the biggest aspect or the biggest money or biggest time waster that you have at the moment? What is costing you so much time? And how could you make that a bit more efficient? What can you do to make sure that you're not spending as much time on that as you are currently? If that is what they want to do. Because sometimes it's not what they want to achieve. Sometimes they just like feeling important by being so busy. I mean, that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But then don't start complaining to me that you're so damn busy. Anyway, this week, as mentioned, it is very, very quiet. There's not a lot going on. And with everyone being so busy, I do find myself falling into the trap of, okay, if they're so busy, then am I missing out on something? Am I not doing something that other people are doing? Is it something that I maybe should be doing? I just don't know. I really, really don't know. And it's something I've been struggling with ever since I started with my company. Ever since I started with my own, how do you call that? Your own element, your own, yeah, basically my own business. Let's call it what it is. Ever since I started with that, I've always been like, okay, why am I not as busy as the others? Am I just as efficient, or am I just more efficient than other people? Am I completely missing out on something? Am I not doing something that other people are doing and that I should be doing? I prefer to think of it as the former, where I am just more efficient. I mean, I get clients, I service the clients, and I move on. But seeing other people be so busy, I'm like, okay, why? How? With what? Are you so inefficient? And maybe that's sounding a bit arrogant. That's not how I mean it. It's just complete lack of understanding. I just really don't understand what these people are so busy with. So that's something that I'm struggling with for years. And I think I've mentioned it before in the War Room. It's just something that I just really don't get. Something that I really, really don't understand. Anyway, I'm in that life phase where people are buying all sorts of stuff. I mean, they're getting a house, they're looking to get children, all this terrifying stuff. And I'm just thinking, okay, how the hell am I ever going to afford that? And it's something that I've always been, maybe preoccupied isn't the right word, but it's something that I've always been a bit worried about. Like, okay, how in heaven's name am I going to afford trying to, I don't know, insert money demanding topic right here. How am I going to do that? How am I going to afford that? What exactly do I need to do to make sure I can afford it? And with people buying houses, with people getting an apartment, with people getting children, it's becoming this sort of subliminal pressure where everyone's doing it, so if you're not doing it, you're going to be the odd one out. And that's something that I seem to always be. I'm always the odd one out. I'm always the one guy who's doing it different than the others. And that's okay, but it's something that I need to allow myself to be, which is not something that I'm really good at. I don't really, as per, let's say, sociological ingraining, I don't excel at being the odd guy out. And at the same time I do, because I always have been. For example, whereas when I was in law school, everyone was looking at how am I going to get my traineeship? What career am I going to start? And I just felt like the odd one out. I just felt like, oh god, I'm never going to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. So, I in fact started my own business back in law school. I started doing the internet marketing for smaller entrepreneurs. And it just kept developing from there. I always try to be the odd one out. If you're looking at, for example, gaming, I try to make the smaller nations that other people might not enjoy, I try to make those work. I try to find a way in which they can be effective. Ways in which they might work that other people haven't considered. In World of Warships, I try to like ships that other people just don't like. The British Royal Cruiser line comes to mind, which is a line that other people thought was absolutely atrocious. And I agreed with them for quite a while, until I discovered exactly how I need to play those, and now it's my favorite line. There's a new ship in World of Warships, not purchasable in the premium shop, but you... Damn it, that's another CV down. But you purchase it using free experience, which is something that you get as 5% of your total XP earned per battle. So what I try to do is, I try to be one of the first ones to get it, because I just like getting those sorts of ships. I like the feeling of being the odd guy out. At the same time, it's of course interfering or conflicting with this feeling of, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to be busy, how am I not busy enough? It just keeps going on like that. And with that, I find that I need to calm down. I don't need to be as busy as everyone else. There's absolutely no reason. There's no need. It doesn't get me anything. It doesn't yield any better results or worse results. It's just something that I need to find peace with. And doing exactly that is challenging. Because everyone around you is saying, yeah, we're going to get kids, we're going to buy a house, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, we're going to take this beautiful vacation to Bali or whatever expensive place they found this time around. And I'm just sitting here going, oh, okay, have fun. No idea how I'm going to afford that or where to go from here, but we'll see about that. Anyway, I hope I'm making... Really? Stealth, for fuck's sake. That's, I believe, the 4th CV I've lost. I don't know, I stopped keeping count. Whatever. Anyway, that is stuff that I'm going through this week. Mostly. So, let's move on to the military history, as promised. The stuff that I'm going to be looking at is not sheer military history, but also history along the lines of interesting facts that or interesting things that I've seen happen, or that I found out were going on in history sometime last week. Yes, that's a bit of a weird phrase, but what I mean by that is that it's stuff that happened this week, X amount of years ago. So it could have been 10 years, it could have been 100 years, stuff like that. That is going to be the historical element. And starting off, of course, something that you can not miss is Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. The Pearl Harbor attack, the day that will live in infamy. I mean, it's, I believe, one of the most famous quotes ever. And that sparked a whole lot of issues for Japan mostly, US too. That, of course, happened December 7th. Then, December 8th, US immediately declares war on Japan. And not just them, the United Kingdom joined them in that action. So they also declared war. Then, China, one day later, China declares war on Japan, Germany, and Italy. Now, I didn't really get into the whole Chinese conflict, but I found it interesting to see that they were actually pretty, I'm not going to say neutral, or I don't know, it seems that like they were on the side of the Allies to some extent. Is that accurate? I don't know, maybe. Maybe. It seems that they were mostly on the side of the Allied powers, to some extent. I mean, not everyone was perfectly happy with that, but that seemed to be the general gist of it. That seemed to be what they were mostly gearing towards. So, reading that China immediately declared war, one day later, I didn't know that, so I found that interesting. Then, December 8th, 1987, so way further down the line, is when the USSR got disbanded. December 8th, 1987, USSR got disbanded. It just didn't exist anymore. Which is something that I never really... I mean, I've studied it in school, of course, but it's something that I didn't read into too much. When you ask me when the USSR was disbanded, I'm probably going to say 1991-ish. But of course, in 89, the whole wall came down, and that's when the USSR pretty much effectively ceased to exist. Of course, to some extent you can still argue, well, some of these countries are still red-oriented, if that's a word. Well, yes, of course they are. I mean, that's how they lived for at least 50 years. So yes, of course they're still going to be a bit red-oriented. And that's okay. It's just something that we need to put into perspective as much as possible. So far, December 7th, Pearl Harbor. December 8th, war on Japan declared by the United States and United Kingdom. Then, December 9th, China declares war. And December 8th, but way down the line, in 1987, USSR ceases to exist. So quite a lot happening there. Bloody hell, they got a lot of stuff in this zone. We need to try and hit that up. What else? Yes, December 10th, 1896. So be advised, this is late 19th century. What happened then was that Alfred Nobel died. And this is not exactly immediately related to military history, but I found it interesting nonetheless. Alfred Nobel, of course, was the guy who came up with the Nobel Prize. And this Nobel Prize, it's where he stipulated that the remainder of his funds, or the remainder of his money, should be spent on rewarding people who have serviced humanity in some sort of fashion. They have to have they give recognition to people who have made a valuable contribution to humanity, is the exact phrasing for it. And that is something that I don't think we take enough note of. It is very significant, these Nobel Prizes. But I, for one, never really got too deep into it. I never was too interested in it. Next up, December 10th, 1941. This is when 2 British warships were sunk in the Asian Gulf, or the Persian Gulf. HMS Repulse and HMS Prince of Wales are sunk by Japanese planes, which is insofar significant that it pretty much signals the end of the era of the battleships, the cruisers, the larger capital ships, which are not aircraft carriers. And these things, of course, do allow for some interesting discussions, as most of the time we think that the aircraft carrier, right now, it's pretty much a given. It is the big power. It is the thing. But back in the day, 1940s, 1941, it was really along the lines of, okay, we have these aircraft carriers, but how are we going to use them? And Japan was pretty much the first one to find out exactly how to do it. They seemed to have the most effect with it. But then again, it still took them a while to figure out exactly how to deploy them best without sacrificing their firepower, or without not being too effective with them. Nice kill with the Rangers there. So, December 10th, it was again made painfully clear just how effective an aircraft carrier could be, or how effective planes could be against ships. It wasn't exactly an aircraft carrier, of course, but it was still significant enough to make sure that it is something that is remembered. And then finally, December 11th, 1941 is when Germany and Italy declared war on the US. I mean, it's not to be helped. It's a likely cause of events, as they were allied with Japan. So that is the military history, or history with most military aspects for this week. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. I'm going to try and do more of these, but I would like your feedback, your input. Do you like this type of format, where I'm quickly going over what happened last week in history? Or do you think it's not that interesting? Feedback is always appreciated and encouraged. So let me know what your thoughts are on that, and I'll see about changing the format, doing more of it, doing less of it, whichever happens to come up. Now, let's finish off this match, and I think that we're very close to it. Look at how deep my Prowler's entering enemy territory without being challenged at all. And since it's a 10v10, I think helo rushing is allowed. So I'm considering, with the 560 points that I have, to just spawn in a wave of helos and start clearing town. Oh, something I forgot to mention. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before. If you haven't checked out Westworld yet, then you are absolutely missing out. Westworld is the new big show by HBO, and it is absolutely amazing. It's set in a theme park, which is, from what we know, the size of a small continent, which is a thematic park for the Wild West. So say 19th century, somewhere, I'd say halfway 19th century, and most of the people involved there are robots. Exactly who and where and how many of them is not exactly disclosed. But what you do know is that there's plenty of them, and people just pay a significant amount of money to make their way to Westworld and be entertained. Do stuff that they cannot normally do. And it's being compared to a real-life Grand Theft Auto. It is an amazing show. There's an amazing amount of depth in it. There's a lot of detail that goes into a series like that. And it is absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't checked it out yet, then be sure to do so, because it is well worth it. Very, very good show. Westworld. I unfortunately cannot talk too much about it. I mean, this is one of those shows where if you know too much, then suddenly the show becomes a lot less interesting. You really need to be kept wondering what is going on. And that is absolutely what Westworld will do for you. So if you're interested in stuff like that, in robotics, in looking towards the future, then have a look at Westworld. You'll not regret it. I'll link a trailer in the description, so we can have a look at it there as well. Westworld. Highly recommended. Other shows that I have been enjoying, mentioned before, I believe, Designated Survivor. The Designated Survivor is the one candidate who is sort of a persona non grata, along the lines of it's someone from the US cabinet who's not allowed to sit in on meetings, or who they really don't want there, because you are the one who's not going to be there when the president gives his State of the Union speech. You're going to be the one who's left out, to make sure that there's always some sort of continuation of government. And with it, it's a bit of an undesirable position to be in, but it's mandatory. Somebody has to. But what if you get someone in the position of Designated Survivor who doesn't really want to be president, who has absolutely no interest whatsoever in becoming president, and what happens if you then force him into the position of being president? How is that going to go down? That is exactly what Designated Survivor works towards. People who have no to little political aspirations, turning them into a president. That is portrayed by Kiefer Sutherland. Really good actor. I mean, I've really enjoyed him since 24, which is of course where I think he made his big breakthrough. He was also in Phone Booth, I believe, but I'd say that the other one was the more important show, 24. So if you need to, or if you're looking to find a new show, have a look at Netflix, where you will find Designated Survivor. Really recommended. Anyway, with that, game has ended. I didn't quite play as well as I wanted to, but then again, trying to comment on various elements which are not gameplay, and playing the game at the same time, it's not something that I do very well. So, I hope you enjoyed this alternate version of the War Room. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Really looking forward to that. And with it, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you're up to this week, and I'll see you soon for more videos.